This happened to my aunt's friend back in the early 2000s. I remember my Netaya was telling me this story because she went to visit the girl before she died. This story was told to my mom and my dad. I was around 8 years old when I heard about this. I don't remember her name, but let's call her Yer. This event occurred in Fresno. One day, my aunt Nancy and her friends, including Yer, went to a lake to go swimming. It wasn't Lost Lake though, I know that much. I don't remember what the lake was called, but they went to a lake. Anyways, they went swimming and all that jazz. When it was time for them to come home, they noticed that Yer wasn't with them. One of the friends walked a little less than a mile away from where they were to some rocks by the lake. Apparently, they found one of Yer's shoes. Nobody could find her, so this went on into a full police investigation. Finally, after a month of her being gone, she miraculously came back. However, she was extremely sick. She was thin, pale, and went kind of crazy. At random times, she would act like she was swimming in water, kind of like a really bad butterfly stroke. Her parents were concerned, so they consulted with a shaman. Here's the sad part. Yer was a very beautiful, beautiful girl. She was the only child to a very old couple that loved her dearly. She was also a very good daughter and did as much as she could for her parents. The shaman told the parents that Yer's spirit had been taken by a dragon who lived in the lake. The dragon thought that Yer was beautiful, so he decided to marry her. Of course, the parents didn't want their only child to be taken away from them, so they did a ritual to see if the dragon would give her back. He refused, naturally, so Yer was placed in the hospital because she couldn't really function by herself. This went on for another 2 months. My Nathai went to visit her with my Aunt Nancy before she passed. My Nathai said that before she passed away, she woke up one last time. She looked at her mom and said, "Mom, don't cry for me because the dragon who took me will take care of me. I won't be poor because he is very wealthy and loves me a lot. Please don't cry for me. I will always watch over you." And with that, she passed away. My Nathai said that as soon as she passed away, she became beautiful again. Her skin glowed, and her cheeks became full like they were when she was alive. Her lips were flushed with color, and her hair was glossy and thick. Of course, being an 8-year-old child and hearing this story scared the wits out of me. But now that I think about it, it was really sad. There's a dragon in Lake Michigan, did you know? I heard from Hmong elders to be careful around lakes and water areas because you never know what's lurking down there. Have you ever seen those movies where the Hmong girl's soul got dragged by a dragon underwater and then she had to marry him and there was no way getting her soul back? Well, something like that happened to this guy. My grandpa told me that there was this boy with his friend and they thought of going to swim at Lake Michigan. So they went swimming and it was all fun and dandy, but then the guy started to feel uneasy, so they went home. The next day, he got really sick and didn't get any better for days, so his parents decided to contact a shaman to see what was wrong. The shaman said that when he went to the lake to swim, a dragon dragged his soul down with it underwater. The dragon refused to give back his soul, so now the guy is mentally ill, I think. My grandpa isn't also too sure about what happened to him. I know that some people don't believe in dragons and some people believe in it more than others. Although I am a Christian, I would like to share my experiences with you all. I've told this story here and there to friends and family, but not as much. This happened way back when I was in middle school. I used to hang out with this girl. I'll keep her name anonymous. We were like best friends and we lived across from each other. I used to go over to her house all the time to play with her and her siblings. My best friend had an older sister who was suicidal. She lived in Thailand and had moved to the States a couple of years back. My best friend's mom wasn't her real mother, so she treated her like crap. Always yelled at her and told her that she was worthless. Here and there, she would lay in bed holding a knife to her stomach, ready to die, she would say. Her father always had to come into her room and talk her out of it. She tried to commit suicide once by slicing her neck, but she failed and survived her suicide attempt. Anyways, back to the story. I started hanging out with her more and more, and she started to open up to me. She said she had a dream about a lake beyond the mountains. The lake is a beautiful greenish blue color, and you can only find that lake beyond those mountains. So one day, her and her family went hiking up the mountains. She came back and told me that she finally saw the lake she had been dreaming about. She was super happy, happier than I have ever seen her. Days later, she opened up to me and told me that she started having more dreams. She dreamt about a guy, a very handsome guy. Now, in the Hmong culture, they say that when you dream about a person you've actually never met in real life, and they ask for something of yours, do not give it to them. However, my friend was already in love with this dream guy. The guy from the dream told her, "Give me the ring on your finger and I'll give you my quarter, so that when we finally meet, I will know it is you and you will know that it is me." She agreed. The next day, I came over and she told me about her dream. She told me that when she woke up, her ring was gone and there was a quarter in her hand. A week later, I went back to their house and she told me about another dream she had. She said that in her dream there was a road and it was dark out. There was nothing else but that road, darkness and a couple of streetlights on. She walked straight ahead because it was the only way to go, and there was another girl walking towards her, wearing white. She said that when she walked past that girl, the girl also looked at her and she saw that it was herself. With that said, she stopped having dreams about the guy. I stopped going over because I was scared after hearing what she told me. A few weeks later, I was told that she had committed suicide, sliced her throat again. My best friend told me that she had waken up early to go to the garden and her sister was still awake on the computer. My friend came back at around 6 a.m. to find her sister laying on the floor. She thought that her sister was sleeping, so she tugged her and saw her neck sliced and her sister pale. There was no blood on the carpet, just a little drop. There was no blood anywhere. They said that she used 2 knives. First, she used a Hmong knife and it didn't cut enough, so then she went and used an American knife. At her autopsy, the doctor found something very strange. All of her blood was drained out and there was also a baby egg in her that they had never found or seen before. The egg had been in her for 4 years. A shaman lady said that she had no blood in her because the dragon who took her drained the blood from her body. On the day of the funeral, I was deeply afraid. I walked up to the funeral door just to walk back out. They had to tie her hands together and her feet together. They glued her eyes together and her lips together. In the middle of her funeral, tears started to come out of her eyes, a corpse crying. My best friend told me that she was scared and sad for her sister. I was so scared I didn't even have the courage or strength to walk into her funeral and say my last goodbyes to her. After her funeral was over, her family sold the house they were living in and moved away, about an hour or 2 drive. Believe it or not, but this personal experience will always be kept in my memory. If you know anyone who suffers from these problems, please seek help. This happened to me in late July of 2019. For a whole month, my friends and I were planning to go to a lake to go swimming. The lake we went to was Lake Wazi in Wisconsin. My friends, let's call them Mai, Ba, Sheng, and me. We were all excited to go to Lake Wazi because the water was so clear and the color is a gorgeous shade of turquoise. So we had our fun at the lake, played around and joked around. You know, the usual things teenagers our age would do. Me and I personally see, dream, and hear paranormal things, but we also poke fun at these spiritual things because we can't take anything seriously. I think we were just too scared to believe that spiritual stuff could be dangerous, so we never took them seriously, even though we have had spiritual experiences. A few days later, me, Xing, and I were coming back from a different trip. We were on the road and wanted to listen to some Hmong stories, but we were with Xing's parents and they were Christian, so we decided to just quietly tell Hmong ghost stories. I told them one of my favorite stories, which was about a girl who had recently ended things with her long-distance boyfriend. She was quietly sobbing at a lake at night. Later on, she began to get sick, and a shaman had come to check her out. It turned out that a dragon had taken her as a bride that night. The shaman was not strong enough to ward off the dragon, and thus she was slowly dying. Her ex-boyfriend had heard about it and rushed back to the village to see her, but by then she had already left with the dragon. I have always loved this story because it is so heart-wrenching, but I didn't think that the dragons would listen to me. That night, when I came home, I immediately went to sleep because I was so exhausted. The sound of water kept resonating in my ears, and all of a sudden, I was hip-deep into the waters of Lake Wazi. I saw something swimming around my body and surrounding me. There was something purple and something blue circling around me. I heard voices humming and speaking to me. "Do you want to see our world?" I said, "Sure." I was a little naive in my dream, but I didn't have much control in my dream. There was a purple dragon and a blue dragon that accompanied him. We had gone underwater, and the deeper we went, the more it was like another world. There was a beautiful cliff that was in the distance, and the scenery was beautiful. The dragons turned into a human form, and they were very good looking. The two dragons took me to their place, and they were preparing for a wedding. The purple dragon told me sincerely to stay here nicely. The atmosphere was feeling odd. I could feel the presence of others, but I couldn't see them. I had this uncomfortable feeling that was sitting at the pit of my stomach. It felt like I had to leave right now. I walked down the hallway, and there was a ripped, decaying hole in the ceiling board. I was able to leave the house through that hole, but while I was leaving, someone had noticed me trying to escape. I had heard a faint voice say, "She has to stay here for 7 days for her to stay forever." I woke up and tried not to think too much about it. My sister and I were doing dishes together. She told me that within the past few weeks, our uncle and grandma have been dreaming about dragons planning a wedding. I told her about the dream with the dragons, and my sister said I should tell my uncle because he was a shaman. I wasn't sure if I should tell him yet because this could have all been a coincidence, right? I said to myself that if I dream about the dragon again, then I would tell him. This could all just be in my head. I went through the day normally, and I went to sleep. Again, I dreamt of the purple dragon begging me to stay. He was holding my hand, telling me, "I will love you forever. I would treat you right. Marry me." He was very sincere, and it made my heart ache a bit, but he could have just been a very good manipulator. After that dream, I just sort of started getting a bit more paranoid and sad. I felt bad, and I wasn't scared at all. They seemed like they weren't scary, or at least tried not to be scary to me. I was just a little scared of the fact that perhaps dragons were real. All of these stories of dragons that our elders had told us were true. I messaged my uncle, and he said that our grandma had been dreaming about dragons preparing for a wedding and reminded my uncle to not go fishing. They had chosen me to be their bride. Of course, the word bride is sugar-coated in this story. My uncle said that dragons treat us like cows and pigs, sort of like a sacrifice. The dragon probably had been following me from Lake Wazi and made his start from there. Unfortunately, my uncle has no idea that I told that story to my friends, so if you read this, you now know why. For the next 3 days, I kept dreaming about this purple dragon. He would always talk to me and beg me to stay. This dream kept on repeating, and my uncle told me that I should stay away from waters and they'll do everything they can to protect me. I talked to my parents about my dreams for the past few days, and they brushed it off and just told me not to go near water anymore. They didn't want to do an oneng for me, and I was just stuck with my dragons. My uncle and I decided to just tie a string on me, but I had been too busy to get the string tied. We planned to get it tied on Friday, but these 7 days were getting shorter. One night, I dreamt that I was at a Hmong funeral home. I saw 3 little kids that were around a very big mirrored room at the funeral home. The 3 little kids were wearing Hmong clothes and were about 10 to 14 years old. There were 2 boys and 1 girl, and they were talkative and sweet. But then my uncle came in. He was wearing a purple dress shirt and black pants. He was dressed up a bit fancier than usual. My uncle said that he came to pick me up. I don't know, but I was hesitant. He kept insisting that I leave with him and that we didn't have much time left. I never answered him because I couldn't give him an answer. He was getting agitated and impatient with me. All of a sudden, my friend Sheng came into my room because we had plans that day, and I slept through my alarm. I found it weird because I'm normally a light sleeper. I never sleep through my alarm unless I turn it off and fall back asleep, which I never do. I pieced puzzles together and realized that it wasn't my uncle in my dreams. It was the purple dragon that took the form of my uncle. Goosebumps covered my entire body. My uncle finally tied the string on me, and I told him about my last dream. He agreed with what I said. The dragon took his form to get me to leave with him. If Sheng never came into my room to wake me up, I would probably have never woken up ever again. This story was told by a friend. There were 4 of her friends that went swimming at High Rock Lake. Now, there is a spot where people can swim there, so 4 friends were having fun swimming. 2 of the friends were swimming to the left, 1 was at the middle of the swimming spot, and 1 went to smoke. Now, there were also a few more people swimming around them in that area, but they were quite a distance away from them. While the one that was swimming in the middle was getting out to smoke too, he was in the water that was only knee-high until he started to scream for help. The other friend that was already smoking ran down and grabbed his hand. He tried to pull him out of the water but couldn't. The friend was deeply worried and confused. Why couldn't I pull him out of the water when it was only knee-high? Whatever was pulling the other friend into the water was way too strong, and if he can't pull him out, he was going to drown alongside with the friend. So he had no choice but to slowly let go of his friend's hand. There was a huge commotion, and everyone gathered there. But by the time they had gotten there, their friend had already disappeared into the depths of the murky water. They called 911. Police showed up and tried to find his body but couldn't. Then 4 days later, his body suddenly showed up. After that night, people came over to his mom's house to help grieve. The younger teenagers were also outside by the bonfire. Suddenly, there was a gush of wind and a small cyclone that passed by the people. Everyone ran, and one ran into the house and told the dead friend's mom that her son was there. They said to tell him to go away and that he was already dead. So the mom said, "Son, you are dead. Please let us be and don't do that to us." Right after she said that, the small cyclone disappeared. The shaman told the mother that a female dragon had taken her son. People say that at High Rock Lake in North Carolina, a lot of people die there by drowning. Be careful if you go swimming there. This happened 1 year ago. I went hunting with my uncle. I was 27 at that time, and as we went, I heard some rustling and a lot of wind blowing. I heard the water moving around like someone was swimming in there. When I looked, I saw something in the water, and it was swimming around in the lake, but I didn't exactly see it. I just saw something underwater. I looked away for about 5 minutes and tried to find some deer. As I was doing that, I heard something jump on top of a tree, and I looked at the tree. It was shaking and moving around a lot, and I was thinking, what the heck is that? And then something jumped back into the water and made a loud splash. I tried to look, but a tree was in the way, so I took off running. As I was running, I heard a lot of splashes, so I was thinking it could have been a dragon. I didn't tell my uncle because I didn't want to scare him, so I told my wife. She said that I didn't need a shaman because as long as I didn't see it or see what it was, then I should be okay. My wife said that maybe the owner of the forest didn't want us there because we were going to kill the animals, so they wanted us to leave by scaring us.